Imagine you're looking at a balancing scale with everything you do for other people on one side and everything you do for yourself on the other side. If it isn't balanced, maybe it's time to spend a little more time on you. And therapy is a great place to start. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist online who can help you find that balance and stick to it. Visit BetterHelp.com/positive to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/positive.
Hey, what time is it, kids?
It's showtime, baby! You'll go wacko, bananas, nuts, crazy, unbelievable!
This is the Bob and Jeff Show, starring Bob Lutz.
I miss Duda. You know, that's the kind of son you want.
I hear you loud and clear.
And Jason Duda. For today, anyway.
That's right, gotcha.
Thanks, Canada. I'll take it from here.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
It's gonna be legend. Wait for it. And I hope you're not lactose intolerant because the second half of that word is dairy. Legendary.
We are back. Hour number 2, Bob and Jeff Show here on KFH Radio. Bob Lutz and my prize son, Jason Duda.
There you go, finally.
Joining the show today in the absence of Jeff, who will be here tomorrow with Jason Duda. It will be yours truly who's absent. The 3-man booth coming up Thursday on the show.
What a week.
You know, I'm a sucker for the hot stove. And this is kind of the first unofficial hot stove day in Major League Baseball. And, man, has it been cooking.
Has it?
Craig Counsell, of all places, is going to go manage the Cubs.
The Cubs now.
The Cubs. Leaving Milwaukee to go to the Cubs. Right there. You have to be a you know I'm a baseball guy through and through.
I know.
This is unforeseen. He grew up in Milwaukee, played high school baseball there, has managed the Brewers. He's going to their bitter division rivals, the Cubs, who did not have an opening that we knew of until announcing this afternoon that David Ross was out and Craig Counsell in at $8 million a year over 5 years. By far the highest paid manager in the history of Major League Baseball, doubled what the Brewers were offering him. So in that way, I guess you can't blame him. But, man, David Ross, what must he be thinking? They just cut my knees out. I understand the move, and I hope the Cardinals are paying attention because the Cubs are obviously going to try to do a lot of big things this winter.
Well, you would think so by doing this.
Shohei comes to mind. There's no question in my mind that the Cubs will put together one of the most lucrative offers for Shohei Ohtani. You don't make this move for this manager unless you're all in.
Well, you wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think paying him $8 million a year.
And what's all in? It's going after the biggest fish, maybe in the history of the free agent market.
But the Cubs are going to need more than just Shohei.
That's a pretty big fish.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. It's a pretty big fish, but you still got to surround them. Got to have something there.
They had a pretty good team this year. Let's say they bring back Shohei and Cody Bellinger. Maybe add a starting pitcher. Money's not an object.
Well, obviously,
these kinds of teams, they break down the barriers. So you add Shohei, you bring back Bellinger, and you sign Aaron Nola. Just throw that name out there.
Right.
You've got a pretty good start.
How much do you think Shohei is going to get in these times right now? Honestly, and I'm asking because I have
10 years, $400 million minimum.
Because he's not going to pitch.
Not for this year.
Not this year for sure.
But he's still a young man. He wants to pitch again. But he won't pitch this year. So I would say 10 years, $400 million to even get his attention.
Right. Because if you're going to get him, you can get his bat and his pitching. How do you?
You don't even get his attention unless it's 10 years. And you probably have to go more than $400 million.
You're probably looking at least $500 million. to be in the argument with other teams that are going to be throwing it at him. How many teams out there, is there enough? Like, I know there's enough, but how many
The
teams
Dodgers,
out
the
there will
Mets.
throw that much at him?
The Dodgers. It doesn't take many. It takes 2.
I know it takes 2, but how many? How many
Well, I'm
can?
telling you.
How many can do it? Just those
Dodgers,
two?
Mets, Mariners, Cubs, Yankees. Red Sox won't. They're not in a position where they would make that move at this point. But there's several. And my concern now is, I don't know if you know, but the Cardinals are in that division with the Cubs.
I'm well aware.
They're kind of big rivals.
I do know that.
Cardinals, we don't like the Cubs.
And that I really
Cubs
know.
don't like us. They made a big move today. The Cardinals are being pushed into a position where they've got to step beyond their comfort level. And they got to go out and get some people. And I don't know if they have the intestinal fortitude to make it happen. And if they don't, they're going to hear from me.
Well, the thing is if they don't, and obviously, like you said, the Cubs are looking like they're going to be making some big moves, then St. Louis is going to be in trouble, not just for this coming year, but for the next few.
You got to keep up.
That's what I'm saying. So they have to go and do something.
The Cardinals have always,
as does everybody else in that division.
The Cardinals have always made an effort to win. This year it didn't turn out well, but they've always made the effort to win. The Cubs have upped the ante on what winning means now in the National League Central. The days of thinking you could get to 90, 91 wins and be in good shape, those are over. The Cubs are trying to win 100 games. Will the Cardinals try to win 100 behind them? That becomes the question. This is hardball, man.
Well, yeah.
This is what I love about baseball. I love this this time of the year. I just love the whole essence of baseball. The wheeling and the dealing and maneuvering and hiring and this kind of stuff just it interests me beyond comparison.
Well, I am interested to see where Shohei ends up. As I think just about everybody that watches sports, even if you're not a big baseball guy, as I am not, but I am curious to see where he lands. Like, I'm curious to see where he lands. I don't know where he's going to go, and I'm curious to see how much it's going to take to get him somewhere. Like you said, 400 to be in the conversation? I don't think so. I think it's probably, like you said, probably going to be more than that.
We'll see.
I mean,
we'll see. I'm not that Shohei, whatever.
Well,
right
that's
now,
because he's not going to go to St. Louis.
Well, he may go to the Cubs, though.
I know, but he's not going to St. Louis, so he's kind of.
No, he's not.
You want to know where he's going, but you don't care because he's not coming to St. Louis. But you don't want him.
I just don't want him to go to
Central.
the Cubs, and I'd prefer he stay in the American League. But a team like the Braves, we don't even talk about them being in the Shohei sweepstakes because their organization is already so solid that they don't need Shohei. They don't need Shohei Ohtani. Let that sink in. That's how good the Braves are. The Phillies probably wouldn't get into the Shohei sweepstakes. I would be surprised, even though they're a very good team. Houston, don't see them. There's a lot of good teams that probably would pass on Shohei Ohtani, but there's a lot of good teams that I think I have trouble imagining him anywhere but L.A. as a Dodger.
Is the injuries with him going to throw a little wrinkle into some teams when they're thinking about this? Just no. Because, if you get Shohei, you're going to be making your money anyway.
Shohei is a once-in-a-generation superstar.
Well, that I can't argue.
And just the marketing of Shohei Ohtani in L.A., he's been in L.A., but he's been in Orange County. But to be in L.A. and to play for the Dodgers, they wouldn't worry too much about this current arm injury. He'll recover from that. And he'll be pitching in 2025.
He's a good player. There's no question about it.
Anyway, baseball's always going to be, I'm checking my phone every minute now just to see if something else has happened.
Well, it's okay. You could check it during break, but if you feel better checking it all the time.
I'm not going to check it now. But I'm curious.
Yeah, you are. Look at you. You're going at it right now.
I'm very curious about this Cubs move. You know, if I'm David Ross, who their ownership had said at the end of the year, he's our guy. He's the guy that's going to win for us.
Well, Jeff was hoping he was going to Cleveland.
Council? They hired Stephen Vogt today. And Jeff's ecstatic about that, as you can imagine. He's convinced himself that Stephen Vogt, who's never managed a game in the big leagues, is Casey Stengel.
Oh, Jeffrey.
Why does he do that?
I don't know.
Why doesn't he take a more wait-and-see approach?
He doesn't. That's just not the way he works. Not even close.
It is. It's too bad. Maybe Stephen Vogt will be great.
Well, he might be.
I hope he is, but there's no way to know.
But I guarantee you, too, they're not paying him $8 million a year.
No.
Not even close.
$8 million a year to manage for Craig Counsell.
That's a lot of dough for a manager.
I can't stand him.
Yo, you don't like him? Well,
No.
I was in Milwaukee, so that makes sense.
Can't stand him.
What's the big deal? Why can't you stand him?
Because he's trying to beat my team. That's why.
So you can't stand him because he's trying to do his job.
Yeah. Did you like
That
other
makes a lot of
coaches in the Central Hockey League back in the day?
Nope. Well,
Right.
actually, I didn't mind most of them except one.
Which one?
Doug Sauter, Oklahoma City.
What's his nickname?
I can't say it on the air.
Oh, a bad one, huh?
Oh yeah, it's a bad one.
Wow.
It's a bad one.
Good coach, though.
Well, he did well. Nobody liked him, but he did well.
Why'd he do well if nobody liked him? How does that happen?
Well, Oklahoma City, when they're back in the Central Hockey League, when you're averaging 10,000 a night, it's a lot of fun to go and play there. Oklahoma City was fun. I mean, I played there for a couple months. I was there. It was
And he was your coach.
He was a coach. He brought me in.
Did he cut you or trade you or what did he do?
He called. He called me. He didn't even call me into the office. Just called me and said, "Yeah, I traded you to Wichita."
Wow, just told you on the ice?
No, he called me in the morning. I was at home.
On the phone?
On the phone. Wasn't even face to face.
Was there any conversation?
So I couldn't get all my stuff. I had to wait and then go to the rink to get my skates and get my stuff out of my stall.
Did he say thanks and we appreciate?
No. Just
Wow. Where's Sadi now?
I don't know where he is.
Not his nickname, but that's the one I'm going to use.
So then played against him for 10 years. That's why I loved playing Oak City. Because it was always...
Did you ever have a word with him over there?
Oh, more than a word. And I can't repeat those conversations either on the air. Because they were not nice. Both ways, not nice.
You two just didn't hit it off.
There was a couple times... Well, I think I've probably told this story before, but it was about a week before he traded me. We were playing Nashville at Oak City, full barn, 13,000 at the Myriad. It was the end of the first period, and my defenseman beat me down to the net because it was right at the end of the period. Nothing happened. I mean, the puck was in the corner, but he beat me down there. So everyone goes off, and he calls me to the bench. He's standing on the bench. I'm standing on the ice, and he is laying into me. So long that I had to move for the Zamboni because it was cleaning the ice, and I was standing where the Zamboni was going.
Wow.
So I back off thinking I'm going in, and he goes, "I'm not done with you yet." So he's still ripping me. We had about 4 guys come out because they're like, well, where's dudes? They thought maybe there was a fight, something had happened, and everybody was off the ice. And I walked into the room, and I still remember Steve Simone, who was our captain. I was sitting beside him. He goes, just in one ear, out the other. And I was like, oh, what? I don't know. I was a rookie, right? I didn't know what was going on. And Sauter comes in, he walks into the dressing room, and he walks right over to me and puts his finger right in my face and says, "Where are you playing next week?" I guess Wichita.
Wow.
And that's how that ended. And then
Did he play in the NHL, Sauter?
No. He played junior hockey. I don't know how he ended up with that job. I'm not sure what had happened. But so then, it was as a player, you go back and we played Oklahoma City, obviously, if you follow the Wichita Thunder at all, when we used to play back then. You played those close teams 10, 12 times a year, right? Travel and that sort of thing. So it was always a chip on the shoulder every time. And I always had my best games against Oklahoma City, always. But yeah, there was one time in Wichita, we were standing, they were walking off the ice, and he'd said something to me as I was going off, so I skated over to him. We're standing in front of the net as he was going off, and it was literally a 3-minute breakdown of things I cannot repeat.
Was he a tough guy?
And Tyler Fleck was there, and he just didn't say anything. The refs were standing there. They just let us have at it.
Was he a tough guy?
Well, he wasn't a tough guy, but he always had tough teams.
How'd he do it? Doesn't sound like anybody'd want to play for him.
Well, that's what you got from a lot of guys, but you were always treated pretty decent there. Guys were treated good there. They had a good setup there. So, it was worth going, but if you talk to a lot of the guys, they're like, if there's one thing they could change, I guarantee you that would have been it. But he won. He did well, so, how are you going to do that? So that's my
too bad.
That's my one coach story. The other coaches, I got along with just about everybody else. When you said that, I started thinking about it and thinking about teams, and even teams I didn't like. I had a lot of respect for their coaches, got along with them. He's really the only guy. So there you go. There's a little old CHL
Solder.
Sudsy.
Sudsy. Now
we'll go with Sudsy right now. I'll fill you in on the break. But,
you can tell me after we go to break.
But as of now, I cannot say anything.
No, we wouldn't want to get you in any kind of.
But any
kind of trouble.
And the funny thing is that one of the last games, and I wasn't sure if I was going to play anymore, and Oklahoma City was going to be done at the end of the year, and we were playing in Oak City. It was the second last game of the year we played there, and he called me over to the bench, and we kind of had a, you know what, it's over kind of thing. He gave me a hug, and he's like, you were the worst trade I ever made in my whole coaching career.
Wow.
So we obviously had mutual respect for each other, but just didn't like each other.
Well, it ended okay then.
It ended just fine.
That makes me happy.
But in all honesty, I enjoyed those 10 years that I played against them because of that. It didn't matter how I felt, if I was tired, if I had heavy legs, if I wasn't feeling good. Always against Oak City, I was not going to miss it.
You wanted to go.
I wanted to go.
All right, there you go. A little rundown memory lane.
There it is.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk college hoops again with C.J. Moore. He is one of the lead college basketball writers for The Athletic, based out of Kansas City. We'll get his thoughts on the Wildcats, the Jayhawks, the Shockers, pretty much everybody in action tonight. I've got a thought about that I want to bounce off C.J. He joins us next, Bob and Jeff, with Jason Duda, KFH.
KFH.
Here's C.J. Moore from The Athletic. We're going to talk college basketball. Let's delve right into college hoops. And I've got a little bit of a bone to pick, not with you, but, this should be an extra special night when you get everybody playing and college basketball kind of takes the center stage. But there's not enough really marquee games to make it that way. Why not?
Because coaches are scared. They're scared to lose early, and they're scared their teams aren't ready yet to play great competition. And I'm right with you, Bob. It sucks. Like we got opening night tonight, and I think the only good game is really, the only game people really want to tune in to see probably is K-State and USC. So props to Jerome Tang for actually playing a decent opponent. But like in an ideal world, I would take the scheduling away from the coaches. And I would put somebody smart in charge of scheduling. And, we'd have an opening night where you see at least some pretty marquee matchups. And, we used to do it where basically the first night, if not the first or second night, was Champions Classic, which was a great way to kick off the season. But, now they even moved that back a week just to give those teams a couple of warm-up games before they play each other.
What is the big deal about playing a tough team to start with that coaches are so scared of. I mean, you need to play good teams to know where you're at and that sort of thing. And like you guys were saying, it sure be a lot of fun tonight if there was a game on at 6 and 8 and 9 that everybody wants to tune into. But like you said, there's only the game at 9 o'clock that people have any interest in watching.
Yeah, I think that, some coaches are at least willing to, and one good thing I think about like these charity exhibition games that happen this year and have the last couple of years is they will actually play somebody that's decent in those contests that don't count, so they can kind of get an idea of where they are. But a lot of times I think they just kind of look at it as a slow build, and you got to build up to the point where you're ready to play those good teams. And at the high major level, what your net is and what your record is, and just trying to make the NCAA tournament is the biggest thing for all of those guys to try to keep their jobs. And, even playing a decent mid-major, like they don't want the embarrassment of that potential loss early in the year. So I just think it leads to just coaches being scared and scheduling that way.
Let's start with Kansas. Pretty much everybody believes Kansas is the best team in the country, at least starting the season. What makes this team as good as it is? Is it just the fact that they roll out a starting five unlike any others? They've got so much balance. They can defend. They can score. They've got ball handlers. They've got shooters. Where is there a potential pratfall on this Kansas team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that while they're preseason number one on everybody's preseason list, just because of the experience they return and, guys who have done it at a high level in actual college games, I do think there should be some concern with how it'll all fit together. If you watch the Illinois game, or even the Fort Hays State game the other night, like they didn't look like the number one team in the country. They even lost to Illinois in that exhibition game. And I think that the two big concerns are 3-point shooting. Like if you look at all their games from the summer, and then the two they've played that didn't count so far, I think they're shooting somewhere in the 20s in 3-point percentage. And then the other thing is depth. I think by going out and getting a Hunter Dickinson, it kind of scared their other decent inside guys away, so they don't have much depth in the interior. And then, losing Arterio Morris in the preseason, who was booted from the team, that's really hurt their perimeter depth. So I think they only have probably in a given year, like the guys that Bill Self would actually want to play on most of his teams, it's probably like around 6 or 7. So if they have an injury or anything like that, I think that could be a concern for them because they're going to rely a lot on those 5 starters.
Well, let's go to K-State. Jerome Tang's made a huge impact as far as I'm concerned. I really like this guy. Where do you see K-State this year?
I think it's one of those years where you want to just try to get to an NCAA tournament. I know, I went to Manhattan and I know that Tang's dreaming a little bigger, and he's talking about Final Fours and national championships. But I think a successful year 2 is just getting back to the NCAA tournament. And I don't think like last year they had 2 stars. You knew who they were going to go to. After the beginning of the season, like once we got to the Big 12 season, we knew those 2 guys were really, really good. This year, not sure who the stars are going to be on the team, who will be those go-to guys. I think they have better balance. I think they have better depth. But I'm not sure they're quite as good a team. We'll see. I'm going to be very interested to watch them tonight. But they did build. They are doing pretty well in recruiting and got some high-level transfers. Tyler Perry was really, really high up on our transfer list. Arthur Kaluma, same from Creighton. So they've got some dudes. We'll just see how they come together. I'm worried about their point guard play. I think is probably my biggest concern going into the year.
CJ Moore with us from The Athletic. He's taught his dog to bark in rhythm. That's pretty impressive, CJ.
She doesn't like daylight savings time. She's used to eating at 4, and she says, it's time, Dad. It's like we're 30 minutes past 4.
So we always enjoy your work in the Athletic. You've recently written about breakout stars in college basketball. So give us 2 or 3 names of guys that maybe we're not thinking about right now, but in a month or so we'll take notice.
Oh yeah, man. Well, in Big 12 country, you've got Milos Uzan from Oklahoma, and hopefully I'm saying his name right. They pay me to write, not to speak, right? He's one in Big 12 country that I think is going to be have a really, really good year. He's a guy that some NBA people are interested in, and he shot it really well last year. I think they'll put the ball in more in his hands with Grant Sherfield, name Wichita people are familiar with. He was with Oklahoma last year and kind of dominated the ball. He's gone now, so I think Uzan will have a good year. Some other guys on that list, man. I'm writing a Grant McCaslin feature, so like all my brain power is going towards that.
You mentioned one you mentioned was Ernest Uday. You mentioned Ernest Uday, who obviously is familiar to us. He's now at TCU. KU will probably rue the day that he left.
Yeah, they could. I mean, watching defensively early on, you'll probably think, well, they probably could have used his shot blocking and the way he was able to steal the ball as a big guy. I think he'll fit in well at TCU. Last year they played really fast. He's the type of guy who is ideal in an up tempo system. So I think he's got a shot. We'll see. I'm kind of hearing from people who have been through there, NBA scouts, saying, he's pretty similar to what he was last year. He maybe hasn't improved in some of his deficiencies, but I do think he will do well in that system. Another name that, to watch at Champions Classic, Tyrese Proctor, Duke guard, who's from Australia. He's really, really, really talented. I think he'll be a guy that has potential to be like a All-American type this year who, was just kind of so-so as a freshman. He kind of started slow and picked it up late in the year. And then another one I really like, Desmond Collab at Xavier. I think Xavier plays somebody decent here this week, so that'll be one of those games that you can actually tune in and hope to actually see a decent game.
Well, give us a breakdown of some of the teams that you think are going to be near the Final Four come the end of the year.
Good luck predicting that, huh?
It's got to be tough, but I'm gonna throw it at you.
Yeah. I mean, you could put a long list of teams that have a chance. Some that I'm a little higher on than others. I'll go with that. Marquette. I really, really like what Marquette returns. Basically lost just one player from its rotation that was good last year, and Olivier Maxis Prosper. He went on to the NBA and was a first-round draft pick, but, in his spot is David Joplin, who's an actually better offensive player. They were awesome offense last year, led by Tyler Kolek, their point guard. So, remember, they won the Big East last year, and then our national champions came from the Big East in Connecticut. So they beat Connecticut twice last season. I think Marquette's going to be really, really good. I'm also pretty high on Illinois, who, Kansas fans have already seen KU lose to the Illini. I think that's a team that's probably better than its 25 ranking. Has a lot of big wings that can handle it and pass and score. They've got a transfer wing in there that'll help, and then Terrence Shannon is this. He was kind of streaky last year, but man, when he's good, he's about as good as anybody in the country. So those are, and then Tennessee is another team that I'm pretty high on. Rick Barnes has been doing it really, really well for a few years in Knoxville, and their defense is awesome. I think their defense will be really, really good again. They've just got Kansas has depth problems, but Tennessee doesn't. And they beat Michigan State at Michigan State in the scrimmage or in the exhibition scrimmage the other day, and they're doing that without Zakai Siegler, their point guard, who will come back like middle of the year. So I think that's a team that by the end of it, it'll be really, really good.
Final moment here with C.J. Moore from the Athletic college basketball senior writer. So 2 questions, 2 parts, 1 question. Florida Atlantic, they're ranked 10th in the season. They were obviously a very much of a surprise team last year, getting to the Final Four. Are they ranked in about the right place in the preseason? And then my second part of the question is, I guess Duke's not going away without Coach K, huh?
Well, I'll start with FAU. I do think they should be ranked pretty high, not just based on the run at the end, but I mean they were really good all year. I mean they went 35-4. They only graduated 1 player that was part of their rotation, Michael Forrest, who came off the bench. So all 5 starters are back. Dusty May, I think, is not like you talk to coaches around college basketball now, and they're like, or guys that were in his league. Like, I was just with Grant McCaslin, for instance. Like, his staff is like, we knew Dusty was really, really good. Like, it took everybody else kind of seeing this run to see it. But he was a guy that, like, they would, study what he did against other teams just to kind of see, all right, this is maybe how we want to play. That, that he was respected at that level. So I think Dusty's a really, really good coach. And I do know I was talking to him recently. I think they've got some injuries, and I don't know that preseason wise they're looking as sharp as they will here coming a couple months, and they might take some losses early. I wouldn't be shocked if they did, but I still think they'll have a pretty darn good year. And then the Duke question, yeah, I mean John Shire is recruiting just as well, if not better, than when Coach K was around. Like, they're just stacking number 1 class after number 1 class. They're getting pros. I think he's looking like, I don't love the just hire the guy in the family hires usually. I don't think they always work out. I think you should, when you're a school like Duke or Kansas or Indiana, North Carolina, you should look at the whole pool of coaches across college basketball and try to hire the best guy. But I do think Duke, it might work out pretty well for them and John Shire. Like, I think he was part of the reason they were getting a lot of really, really good players at Duke, and he's kept that going. And I expect them to have a pretty good year.
CJ, we really appreciate it. You do great work for The Athletic. Thanks for being on our show.
Thanks for asking me. Take care, guys.
CJ Moore, college basketball. It is that time. This show has centered on college basketball.
Looks like
today.
it. Looks like it.
Football going on, hot stove, hockey. We've covered it all.
It's all here. It's all
right
here.
869-1240, a few minutes left in the show. Shocker women go down to Norman today. Very encouraging first half. They led at halftime. And then the third quarter happened. OU shot the lights out, really zipped by the Shocker women, ended up winning 92-68 at the Lloyd Noble Center this afternoon. Wichita State's opener, as it was for Oklahoma. So I guess if you're Terry Nooner, you think, we got to figure out how to play like that first half and not that third quarter. They were outscored 35-11.
That'll do it to you.
In that quarter.
That'll do it. That's
they raced
tough.
a 6-point halftime lead and didn't go well.
No, but it's early. Give them some time.
Gotta have time.
Give the girls some time.
I like Terry Nooner. I like what he has to say. I like their recruiting approach. None of this is going to get resolved early.
Of course not.
And if you're expecting the Shocker men to go out and just look like world beaters tonight,
don't.
It's not going to happen. Paul Mills is in the process of building a program that will stand the test of time. And I give him a pretty fair chance of being able to do that, but it's going to take a little bit. He's got to get his type of system installed. And
then you need the players for that system as well. Although I know he's recruiting and stuff this year, but you got to give him a year or two to.
No, you gotta have.
But Bob, don't you think that one of the biggest problems now, especially in college sports and college basketball, is that a guy like Paul Mills comes in here. He's trying to turn things around. He's trying to get things to where obviously everybody wants to be. But at the end of the year, he could have half his team jump into the portal. How do you build a team now?
Here's how I view the portal. You take it on an individual year. Just because guys are leaving through the portal doesn't mean you don't have guys coming through the portal. And to me, that's how you got to look at this. This is the day and age we're in. So you better make a net gain in the portal, right?
Right.
If you make a net gain in the portal, who cares where they come from?
Right, but do you think like a team like Wichita State, if you have a couple really good players that want to go play in the Power 5, they leave, how are you going to replace those guys? Because
then you better find a couple guys that are really good players who want to come and play in just below the Power 5.
Right, but that's not easy.
It's not easy anyway.
You're losing a couple of your best players, and then you got to go and hope you can maybe try to find a couple guys.
You lose your best players every year. It can be through the portal. It can be through graduation.
Absolutely.
It can be through.
But if you're trying to build something, you bring kids in that are sophomores or freshmen, and then you lose them right away. That's tough to replace that.
Yeah, you know what? You deal with it.
Well, you have to deal with it. You don't have a choice. What I'm saying, it makes it a lot more difficult to build a program.
Guys that are sitting around like you right now in their offices, whining about it, grabbing a piece of cheese and whatever.
Be careful.
Then
at the end of the show, and we're going to start this now.
Those kinds of guys might as well go into used car sales.
I feel like half these coaches have to be a used car salesman.
Right.
You basically, that's what you're doing. That's not easy.
No, it's not easy, but this is a world in which they're operating now.
That it is.
And I'm not saying I'm a big proponent of it.
Oh, I don't like it.
But you gotta be able to adjust. And if you lose a couple guys, you better know who you're going to get. It's everywhere. It's not just Wichita State. It's everywhere.
I understand that, but it's not easy. It makes it more difficult.
Well, it's not. It's never
more
been
difficult
easy
for the programs. It's more difficult for the fan bases.
It is another facet of recruiting.
Is it another facet of recruiting or free agency?
It's recruiting. Do you recruit free agents?
You do.
This is all about
I don't like it.
Enticing.
That's fine. You can try to make it sound like, oh, it's no big deal. I don't like it.
Here's what I'd tell you. Here's what I'd tell you.
Well, tell me.
Go get a job at Mel Hamilton Ford.
Why?
Because you can't cut it here. You can't coach at this level.
Well, so am I fired?
Yes.
Sweet. Jeff, get somebody for tomorrow.
Well, you're not fired from the show. But if you were
fired from what?
You're fired from coaching.
Well, if it would be totally different if I was in the coaching aspect. And I'm not saying it's not difficult. I'm saying I don't like it. It's tough. If you want to build a program like they used to, you go get high school kids. You have them for 4 years. You build the program like that. I get it's changed. I get it. I really get it. I understand that. I understand kids want NIL money. Do I think that they should be getting stuff? I do. But from
you're giving them
a program standpoint, it's really difficult, especially for mid-majors, to build a program and to keep that going. Because you're going to lose all your good players.
Well, then you go get some players from the smaller majors. I mean, this is like a farm system now.
It is.
It is. And you better keep feeding yourself good players. There's a lot of good players out there.
Of course.
They're not all at the Power 5 conferences. And you just build a program. Wichita State's got the potential to have one of the best non-Power 5 programs in the country.
True.
And there's no reason why they can't meet that potential, even with the transfer portal, even with NIL money. I'll guarantee you Paul Mills isn't sitting over there at 21st and Hillside the way you're sitting here today going, I can't do it. It's so hard.
Never said that. Now you're just turning things around like you love to do. It's difficult. It's hard for the programs, for the schools. Because you don't keep all these guys that you think you're going to have for 3 or 4 years. It's difficult. It's way more difficult than it was. And you just think, well, I'll just get a couple more guys out of the portal. We've seen how the portals work for WSU the last few years. It's been awful.
It hasn't been awful.
It hasn't been very good, Bob.
They got Jake. I mean, you get players.
And how's that translated?
I hope that Rogers is a very fine player. Colby Rogers out of Siena.
Well, of course we hope they're going to be
Xavier
good.
Bell came here from Drexel. You got to get play. You got to keep working it, man. You don't have what you don't have time to do is sit around like you are right now and just lamenting it and practically crying about it.
Oh.
My gosh!
One day you'll see the point, I guess, but it doesn't.
Well,
matter.
Try this out on Jeff tomorrow and see what
will.
happens.
I will, and he'll agree with me because he's kind of smart when it comes to that.
Really, he'll agree with this.
I'll bring it up. We'll chat. I'll see what he says. If he's gonna go off like you did and turn it around and make it sound like it's no big deal and it's a lot easier.
I'm not saying it's not a big deal, but you better be ready.
When it comes to building the program, it makes it way more difficult.
I don't agree.
Well, you're wrong. That's good.
I don't agree.
At the end of the show, you're finally wrong today.
I had a great show.
Yeah,
100 for 100 on my points.
The guy's unbelievable.
Jason Duda, 63.
That's not bad for me.
No, not bad. That's a high D.
I usually run 50-50, so I'm good.
It'll be Duda and Jeff tomorrow. I will be back here Wednesday. Have a good evening.